Welcome to Lights On podcast. My name is Mitra. I help people who are ready to end their suffering realize that there is a good chance they're living their life in survival mode, no matter what they know and what they own. I also help them to transform their lives, being a survivalist to becoming an attentionist, a new word and a new way of living and being in the world. Let us take a deep breath, summon our attention, and take a mindful listen together. This episode is about upcoming shift and changes brought to us by the spring equinox. For over 3,000 years in ancient Persia, now known as Iran, people have been celebrating and venerating the arrival of spring. The solar Hijri algorithmic calendar, which is based on precise astronomic calculations, starts on the first day of spring, which occurs on or about March 20th of the Gregorian calendar. I'm telling you this not because I'm an astronomy expert, but because this year's spring equinox is coming with the news of huge transformation and shift. Many of you have asked me, what does that mean, huge shift or transformation? Well, it means different things to different people, depending on where one's consciousness is at. But I have to say there's one common element about the time of shift, and that is that there will be many, many changes to our so-called normal life. And you may say, what? More changes? More loss of norms? Yep. There will be more changes and more so-called normals leaving our lives. And why does it mean different things to different people? Because we all work with changes and letting go of old norms in different ways. It all depends on our practice beliefs and which really means our level of consciousness. In fear, we see changes as misfortune and destructive to our rhythm of life. Because remember, in fear and in survival, we prefer familiar things that make us feel safe, be they healthy or unhealthy. That is why people stay in unhealthy relationships, jobs, circumstances, and basically an unhealthy life, because they prefer unhealthy familiar to healthy unfamiliar. Very important point. Unhealthy familiar to healthy unfamiliar. However, now let's see what we do in choice. In choice, we accept change as part of life and realize if we are alive, we must have survived some changes because change is life. Because if life was not changing, it wouldn't be life. I noticed that when I sat in the room of a hospital, keeping this space for a client who was on their deathbed and had asked me to be there, present, when they were being unplugged. So their family notified me, and as promised, I showed up in the room of the hospital when they were planning to unplug my client. And as I was watching the heart monitor going up and down, changing constantly, and then witnessing it turning into a straight line with no change as life left my client's body, I realized life is exactly like that heart monitor. While it's happening, it goes up and down, unpredictably, up and down, depending on what's going on in life. And death is opposite of that. a predictable line of no ups and no downs. Same sound, same line, no change. As much as my client's family saw my participation in their loved one's departure as a favor to them, really, my client gifted me with a deep knowing just before they left their body. They helped me to understand the nature of life. I had watched and listened to the heart monitors before. It wasn't my first time, but I had never found the nature of life in that heart monitor. I realized life means change and death means no change. So there you go. Thank you to my beloved client who was an amazing person. All right. Let me just breathe my emotions. All right. To me, this realization means if we are in fear of change, that means that we are in fear of life while living a life. Because change is the nature of life. It has been so. It will continue to be so always. But there are times in the history of human beings and Earth's consciousness. By the way, these two are related. Earth is like a human body and has consciousness and acts like our body and our consciousness. Of course, our collective body and collective consciousness. But there are times that more changes happen and times that more changes happen more often. And we're living in one of those times. We're actually quite fortunate to live in times like this. And I know to many of you, life seems to be worsening and our conditions of life getting worse than before. But that is not true. If you look at history, you see that these are actually quite promising times. True that we know about atrocities and bad news of life much more than we did before because of the media and technology. But believe me, these are not the worst times in history. We're observing rapid changes, and these rapid changes are politically, economically, environmentally, relationally, technologically, but most importantly, they are energetically and consciously. These changes will continue to happen at a rapid speed, and it necessitates a major decision for every living person. And that decision is, do I want to live in fear or do I want to live in choice? In another word, do I want to live as a survivalist or do I want to live as an attentionist, as I call it? In fear, more rapid and more frequent changes mean more worrying and more anxiousness, more diseases, more pain, and more suffering. In choice, the same more frequent changes and more rapid changes mean more opportunities and more excitement. It's a simple and profound choice that all of us have to make. It's like we have to choose our citizenship, except it's not about an allegiance to a country or ism. It is about our citizenship in a state of consciousness. Do I want to live in the country of fear or do I want to live in the country of choice? If we choose fear and continue to live in survival mode, well, then these words and what I'm saying will add to your fear. I'm sorry. But if you choose choice and living with intentional attention as an attentionist, then you can start like taking small steps, doing certain things that will help you. And I'm going to give you 3 of those things that might somehow be helpful in your daily living. One, I would like you to unawakening. You know, that time that is between sleep and awakeness every morning when you wake up. I want you to really, in that moment, remind yourself, call yourself by name. Hey, me, remember, you have a choice. You have a choice to walk the streets of today with awareness and knowingness. Simple reminder. The second thing I want to suggest is that I want you to pick one area of your life and start living it with choice. Start very small, say in the way you answer people, for instance, or the speed with which you eat, or adding a few steps to your daily movement, or taking 3 breaths before deciding. Something small that allows you to have a chance to activate your choice authority and decide knowingly instead of automatically on like an old pattern. So just that. 3, if you are suffering any pain or in any areas of your life, I want you to imagine if nothing or no one, depending on the situation, if nothing or no one changes in that particular part of your life, I want you to ask yourself, what choices do I have at my end to end my suffering? So it may be a live question for you, and it may go on for a while before you find an answer. The answer may come to you in images, in colors, in geometry, in numbers. I don't know. Everybody is different. But I want you to really ask yourself that question. And the reason I say that, because often I see that people are waiting for something to change, are waiting for someone to change. And that takes away their choice authority. When this arrives, I'll be happy. When this happens, I'll be healthy. When this person decides to do that, then I will be this and that. And I want you to really stop waiting and start choosing and see what happens when you do that. And I think that's all I wanted to say in this short podcast. But if you are really interested to explore this subject deeper, and I mean really deeper, and if you're willing to make a major shift from fear to choice, and if you get accepted to the program, there are a lot of ifs here, but they're all good ifs. We offer an online 3-month in-depth mindful attentionist self-coaching program that allows you to learn to coach yourself with the help of our very precise teaching designed to address these unusual times. And there will be also strong group support for you. You'll receive weekly audio lessons. We meet live on video every Sunday morning. You have a weekly pod group support. And there's also an optional daily chat to keep your practice alive and strong. So our next offering will be starting on April 30th, I believe. And to explore that, you can go to my name, mitramanesh.com, and you will see on the first page right on the top where it will take you to more information and to I think the program basically breakdown of what it includes and what it means. So this is just something I wanted to add because we have an offering, and I have to say that this program is not for everyone, and it may not be something that you're ready for because it's a deep dive into the world of choice. And sometimes we have our attachment to our suffering, as unusual as they may sound to you. I have seen it for over 40 years in people. It's like, don't take away my familiar pain. It goes back to the statement that I made earlier, that sometimes we prefer our familiar unhealthy to our unfamiliar healthy. The choice is yours. And as I always say, I invite you to pay attention to your attention. Before you leave, please take a deep breath and ask yourself, what lessons and gifts can I take from what I just heard and apply them to my life? If you found and gained something, and if you feel generous and would like to pay it forward, please rate and share Lights On Podcast right away. On behalf of my incredible team, I thank you for your presence.